Alright, you guys, so first up, do you have any questions about the covered videos and article? If there was anything in here that was unclear about how to use the program and what the basic approach is, then that would be the first good thing to cover. So I've got all of that stuff open right here. Sounds like no. Okay. So let me look just briefly at this article that I linked to. By the way, Pixel Joint's a really great site if you are into pixel art. They have, I believe, still monthly contests and lots of contributors who do really, really great looking work. But I like this article because it's the most comprehensive explanation of what pixel art is, how you should do it, and what the common pitfalls are. And so it's a really great read. I don't go through absolutely everything in the video, so give it a read yourself. But in particular, some of the broad questions like what is pixel art is useful because oftentimes I have students say, well, because we're doing digital art, it's all pixel art because it's all made of pixels. And this kind of explains why that's not true. And then also if you use tools that are just single pixels, why that's not necessarily pixel art either. Going down to the terms you should know section, this is only really relevant if you're going to do a lot of pixel art, but aliasing is a very common, very useful technique. Dithering is also, and then some of these other ones are really more particular to these guys because they're enthusiasts. Also the examples of banding and bad anti-aliasing are really good things to avoid. And then particularly, I would say the most important one is the jaggies kind of concept, where there are certain patterns of pixel that look good when you zoom out or whether you're zoomed in, and there are certain patterns of pixels that don't look good when you do that. And so these are some examples of that. It tends to just be kind of a gradual changing of the ratio, whereas in this curve on the right hand side we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, then 1, then 2, then 4. Over here we've got, I think it's like 4 or 5, and then 1, 1, 1, and then 5. It just doesn't work very well. It makes it for like a beveled corner. And in the case of this long line, if you have these interruptions, like these 1 pixel oversteps, it makes it look jagged or it makes it look messy. So you have to be a lot more careful about how you shape something in pixel art than in other art forms, because ultimately you're typically going to see it zoomed out and we're getting it as sort of impression of what's there as opposed to what's actually there. So just for an example, if I grab the line tool here in the program and I just drag it out, this will make an automatic line wherever I point, but that doesn't mean that it's a good line. So for instance, this is a very bad line that I just made with that automatic tool, because we've got 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. That pattern doesn't make very much sense. And when you look at the zoomed out version, it's okay, but it looks wobbly. Okay? If you want a wobbly looking surface, then fine, this will work. But if you want a nice crisp looking surface, then that did not work very well. Okay? So you can't always just use the automatic tools to get you through. You have to think a little bit harder than that. So if I drag this out, I can actually see the patterns change as I move. And so even a pattern like this, where it's a very regular repeating, almost regular repeating pattern of 2 singles and 1 double, it doesn't look good at all in this zoomed out version. It looks like a staircase, you know, with little landings on it. So you want to be careful about that sort of thing. I like the line tool because it can give you this experimental view where you can just drag it out and take a look and then look at the zoomed out versions. But typically you're going to want to stick to very mathematic ratios, like 1 pixel up, 1 pixel over, 45 degrees is always completely reliable. And then 2 or 3, just the same number for every step, like this one. I don't know what that angle is, but it's making a nice straight appearing line. Let me try, there we go. So you can see in the zoomed out version, it's making a nice straight appearance of that line. Any number of pixels over then up or up then over is going to be fine as long as you repeat just that. Any abnormal number is usually not going to appear very good. Okay. And same thing's true for more, you know, free-form lines like these, although you can repair them with some aliasing. As you can see up here, now that looks nice and straight. Okay. Dithering, you want to be careful about. If you overdo it, then it can make the object look like it has texture that it shouldn't. If you underdo it, then it makes the object look like it has no turning form or softness. Okay, and then also, yeah, just be careful about banding, and I think maybe they call cushioning, yeah, pillow shading. Every single edge does not deserve a shade. So that will just make it look like it's a Photoshop emboss filter or something, which doesn't look good at all. So be careful about all of those. And then they've got even some advice about portraying small details here, which is pretty cool. And some practical examples of when you should and should not use anti-aliasing and the subtle differences therein. Okay? So that's just a basic kind of overview really quick of what this article contained. Do you guys have any questions about the contents of either the videos or the article?
I do, yeah. What is anti-aliasing? I'm still not clear what that is.
Anti-aliasing is when you have a line or a form that you want to soften the appearance of. So I'm just going to, by hand, just make this curve. And if we look up here in the thumbnails, the smaller versions, it just kind of looks kind of wonky and weird. If I want to soften the appearance of that, then what I can do is take a semi-transparent color and put it anywhere where the color or where the shape is changing direction too quickly. So it's going to be a little hard in this example because I got to use like semi-transparent black, but maybe I can figure it out. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just make a new layer and set this to, we'll just say half. So now I'm going to put a few black tones here and there along this edge to see if I can start to get some anti-aliasing. So this, open it, pop up. This is the preview of that same line now with these semi-transparent dots over the top. So here's my original layer, here's my second layer. Oops, now I've lost that window. And then here's the preview. It starts to smooth out the appearance of this line when you do something like that. So they've got examples up here of anti-aliasing. Like this is sort of anti-aliasing, but this is a very advanced application. It's more like this. So this slope here, they're saying this is maybe too little anti-aliasing because it didn't change the appearance of this being a jagged slope. This is too much of those halftone lines because now it just kind of looks like a blurry mess. And all of this on this complicated shape is anti-aliasing as well. It's a really tough thing to balance correctly, but if you do the right amount of halftones and whole tones, then it can smooth out significantly. I think this is probably the best example, this whipped kind of line and then the curving bumpy shape. If you look in the very lower right hand corner, those are the same things that we're seeing here zoomed in, but now you can only see the effect of the anti-aliasing because we're so far away. So the left hand ones look much more jagged and harsh, and the right hand ones look much more smooth. And it's because these halftones are creating the feeling that there's a pixel kind of off the grid in here somewhere. Does that make sense to you?
It does, but in like AAA titles like Pod, when they say anti-aliasing, are they just doing that on a much larger scale?
Yeah. What they're doing is they are using. Your entire pixel is made up of, or your entire screen is made up of pixels, right? That is the process of blurring between neighboring pixels on your screen with a 3D engine. And so in pixel art games, you oftentimes want full crisp pixels, but for everything else, like photographs, you don't really want that. So if I were to let's just look up a picture of something. Actually, you know what? I bet I've got something just sitting here on my desktop that I could grab already. Let me grab that. Yeah, perfect. So I've got this like 3D, oh no, it's animated. Well, it doesn't really matter if I can zoom way in. Way down here, now that I've zoomed this far in, this is the anti-aliasing on this image, right? It's everywhere. And the amount of anti-aliasing will require your video card to do more work because it's got to calculate between this pixel and a neighboring pixel. But sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. In general, in 3D games, You want more anti-aliasing because you've got a full color image that's moving around on your screen, and the anti-aliasing will help you to blur between frames slightly and blur between object borders slightly so that it appears more photographic. Does that make sense?
Kinda, yeah.
It's just this blurring. Like when I zoom way in here and you can see this stair stepping, that's anti-aliasing. How you use it and how you apply it changes really greatly between applications, though.
Okay, I think I understand.
Yeah. In terms of pixel art, it's an intentional process of adding these halftones to soften the appearance of a curve or a shape. In video card, parlance, or in like 3D rendering, it's kind of a filter run over the output to help you smooth out the resulting image. That is just part of the GIF, but that anti-aliasing would be there no matter what. Like in a photograph, it would always be there. So like, I think I got some actual photographs. Oh, here's like a promotional thing from The Incredibles, going way back. If I zoom way in here, you could say that this is compression, but it's also anti-aliasing, because this was a 3D render originally, and you don't want hard, crisp edges between Bob sitting here and the back wall. It would look too artificial. It's not how optics work in the real world. You want a little bit of bleed, and especially if things are moving around, you want much more bleed. So motion blur is another kind of way to handle that problem. If you don't have motion blur, things appear to strobe across the screen instead of gradually move position. All that kind of makes sense? Hopefully?
Yes.
Cool. Do you guys have any other questions about terminology, approach, why it is we're doing some of these things? Okay. So dithering, where'd the example go? Dithering is just a pattern to change one color into a different color. The reason we need that, even though we can pick infinite numbers of colors, is because one of the hallmarks of pixel art is a low palette count, so a low number of total colors. Let me go ahead and just delete this overlay layer because that was annoying. So if I want to transition something visually between like red and blue or something, let's grab some red. I'll put a little spot over on this side, and I'll take blue and I'll put it over on this side. So if I want to optically transition between those two, because who knows why, the light is one color, the object is another, I don't know. We need to make a pattern that gradually fills in this area with less and less and less red going from left to right, and less blue going from right to left. Piskel has a dithering tool, and by default it will just fill in a checker pattern of both the colors you have selected. So I have red and blue selected, so I can just fill in that area. But just doing that doesn't always do the trick. So I'll fill in this entire area like that, and then you can tell me if that looks like a smooth transition to you. So check up in the little thumbnail, or I even like this smaller thumbnail. Does that look like a smooth transition between red and blue?
No.
Not even close, as far as I'm concerned, which is where some of these patterns come in. So there are many different dithering patterns, but generally it's just kind of a grid. And so if you go from a more sparsely populated grid of the opposite color with a more densely populated grid of the current color, then it appears to transition by more steps, and you get a smoother transition. You can also do that with multiple colors, and you can also do that with patterns, like here and here. The reason you might do it with patterns is, say you've got a character underwater who just thrashed, and there's like the water color, which is dark, and the foam color, which is light. You might want this dithering pattern to kind of reflect that, to look like little bubbles and little particles instead of just being a smooth pattern. So to smooth this out, what I need to do is fill in more red over on this side, but not total red. So I'm going to bring this into the center a little bit, and then on the blue side I'm going to do the same thing, bring it in towards the center a little bit. like that. And then I'm going to try to think, what is a pattern of blue that I could put down over here that is not as dense as this every second pixel thing? Well, one thing I could do is I could start skipping rows like this. So now it's the same kind of pattern as before, only spaced out with a column of pure red in between. So I'll do the same thing over here. We'll skip a column and then skip one more column and fill that in. And so now, if you look up here, does that look any smoother than before? A little bit, right? And it's a really simple pattern, but yeah, generally it looks a little bit better than before. And that's not the only way we can do this. We could think, so let's just skip, and I would probably need more vertical space for this. Let's just skip every second pixel from the pattern that we had before. So now this would have been filled in, but now it's not. Then over here, one of these would be filled in here, and I've got a problem. I'm going to get this weird kind of like triangle effect by doing that pattern. So maybe I can't do that one, right? Or I could just fill in here now and here. So it's a little bit similar to before. But we could figure out all sorts of different ones, and you can even look them up. There's all sorts of dithering patterns. In fact, let's do that. Let's look up Dithering Patterns. There we go. So we can find a whole bunch of them. So here's some suggestions here. They're all kind of like fabric patterns, sort of like houndstooth and like tartan and polka dots and stuff like that. Here's a really nice one. Really nice gradual dithering pattern. Here's some really crazy ones. Some of them, like this one, looks like bubbles. This one looks like a warp, jet or something. This one looks like fizzing kind of vapor. This one looks very symmetrical. Lots of really cool kind of patterns. And these are, prescribed patterns. Like there's a limited number of these that really work. And so you don't have to invent a new one. You probably should just kind of look one up and see which one is going to work for you. Like here's a bunch, and they even named them. Kind of neat. Okay. So does that make sense? Cool. All right. Other questions about how this works and what it is we're doing here in pixel art? No? We good? Banding. Banding is just, instead of offsetting the different colored pixels in a more organic way, they're moving as a unit, which creates larger, chunkier pixels. So in essence, do not just surround all of one color of pixel with another color of pixel. That's not a good way to do anti-aliasing, and it's not a good way to do shading. So the example down here for shading is the entire outline is darker in general, and then the next is slightly lighter, and then the next is slightly lighter, and the next is slightly lighter, kind of like a infrared heat map, and that does not make for good shading. That's one kind of banding. The other kind of banding is this, where you've got all of the pixels that make up the band chunked out into these larger section shapes. So try not to do that. Anybody else? Questions? Let's go ahead then and do an example. So you guys already know what your assignment is. You have to make fruits. Okay? The reason why fruits, because they've been done to death. There's lots of examples everywhere. They're easy to find. And there's a lot of different fruits with a lot of variety to give you some challenge. I'm going to do an example here. The size of my canvas right now is 32 pixels, which is a nice low middle size. It means that I can fit in some detail into my graphic, but I'm not super restricted by like an 8 pixel size where no detail at all is possible. In the assignment, I say that you can pick any of these. I've eliminated 8 because 8 just tends to be far too punishingly small. 16 is a big challenge. 32 is pretty typical. 64 is easy, but try to make it look like pixel art if you go that large. That's the only problem there. Okay. So I'm going to create a fruit, and we're going to decide what that is. I'm going to try to think up some challenging ones. So like I thought earlier kiwi would be challenging. Kiwi. So the reason a kiwi is challenging is because it on the outside is just a brown ball with very little detail. It's got one little side with some very, very small details. Yeah, and it's hairy, which how the heck do you make something look hairy in pixel art? And then we've got the inside, which is vastly different. The green with tiny little black pips and this sort of starburst pattern. So this is a really, really challenging fruit to do in pixel art because there's so much small detail and so little large-scale detail. Okay, so I'm going to try to depict that and see how well we can do. What in the world? A kiwi strawberry. That's got to be Photoshop, right? Okay, I'm fascinated. We'll look that up later. Okay. The fruit. The fruit is our homework. So I'm going to take this tab. I'm just going to tear it off and put it on my other screen so that I can continue to look at it. I'm going to use it for color reference, and I'm going to use it to try to look up additional pictures if I get in trouble with what my attempt is. So first thing first, let's talk about what my approach should be. This is the entire tile size, right? 32 pixels all the way across, up and down. I don't want to leave. Cancel. Why are you saying leave? I'll just stick to using my mouse. When you make your icon, you should try to fill up almost this entire field, right? So I'm just going to use the circle tool really quick. I've got blue on, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go into the very upper left-hand corner and draw all the way down to the very right-hand corner. That would be an ideal fit for this tile, but it's pretty common to leave one tile border around the edges or two or something, just not much more than that. Okay, so I'm going to take one step in. This would be a nice spherical, shape for this particular tile size. Okay, so I want to make it as large as possible, and I want it to be as recognizable as possible. So first question, should I make a kiwi that is cut or not?
Yes.
Yes, cut.
Now he said yes. That means you're saying I should do two things.
Yes.
Yes.
So I should do one full kiwi and then a second cut kiwi. That would be
Exactly like that picture.
that would be pretty clear, right? And that's probably why they photographed it that way. Yeah, you could absolutely do that, and it would be a good thing to do because now you would have all the information available. What about this, like a quarter cut?
Now you're just trying to be fancy.
Or like spare myself a little work or something like that. Is it not possible to get away with just doing a cut in half kiwi?
Maybe not. I feel like it'd be too close to a cucumber.
That's true. Yeah, because it's not going to look round anymore. It's going to look like it's a cylinder, right? It's going to look flat on the opposite side, like it's a slice instead of this egg shape. So that may be true. It might not be possible to just do a cut in half kiwi. There is this one where it's turned more away from camera, but then guess what? We don't have any space here to put little pips and starbursts anymore because we're dealing with pixel art. So the more flattened this ellipse is, the less room we're going to have to work on it. So yeah, we may have to just do two side-by-side shapes. So now I want to think about the composition of those shapes. I could do it exactly like this, but notice this is kind of a rectangular arrangement. So that means that I would, and let me just pick some basic colors to represent these two. We'll get a kind of tan brown, and then also our vibrant yellowish green. Okay, so for that, I'm going to turn my pen size way up large. If I had one shape right here, like this, and then my other shape right here, I'm wasting a ton of room on the lower part of this sheet, right? To get them in the proper size in that orientation, there's just nothing down here. So I want to think about the arrangement of these things as well. Is there some way to fill up most of this space? This square space. How about, would this work?
Yeah.
That would work, right? We've got a cut kiwi in front. We've got a kiwi in the back. The fact that it's standing upright bothers me a little bit, but not too much. Okay? Or maybe something a little bit more like this. What if I just take this and bring it down diagonally a little bit? Kind of more like this one. So now I've got the kiwi on its side, laying down the way I think of a kiwi, and I've got one that's facing camera that's nice and easy to see. So that would mean, let's get our eraser, get rid of all that stuff. What I'm doing is turning the size up to maximum over here so that I can just doodle with this. So that means I would have one fairly large semi-ovular kiwi over on this side, and then I would have a smaller but more round kiwi shape right about here. How's that? That's feeling much better to me. Okay, so that was a good first step to just kind of figure out what I'm doing. Now I'm going to turn the size of these pens down and start to nitpick and sort of find the exact space that I want to occupy this stuff. I was just reading the chat real fast. Okay, yeah. So I do want to have a little bit of skin on this foreground kiwi, but first let me figure out this round shape. I'm going to turn it all the way down. So I want it to be as round as possible, which means usually staggering the pattern of steps so that it's a little bit more organic. I was using right click to erase just then. I almost always leave my second color on transparent. That way I can just right click to get rid of pixels like that. So if I do, how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, 2, 1 is a little bit too extreme. So let's do 6, 3, 2, 1. That's going to be too large. I may want to employ my circle tool to see if it can help. I'll make a new layer above. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. In fact, I probably want something more like this, slightly at an angle, right? A little bit of an ellipse. So I'm going to go ahead and use that, I think. That's working really nicely. And I'm going to come down to this first layer and let's just erase all the green. All right, there we go. Get that out of there. So I've got green on one layer that I can deal with. Now let's deal with brown. Once you've put a color into your composition, by the way, your palette will occupy all of those colors, and so you can just click over there. So I'm going to just fill in the parts that will not be covered by this kiwi on this other layer, and I think we can merge layers, if I remember correctly. Yeah, merge with the layer below. There we go. So I'm going to leave it separate, though, for a second. And I'm going to try to make this nice round shape a little bit more easy on the eyes. Let's see. And it'll take a little bit of messing around. Let's see if I pretend that this goes through for a moment, like that. Probably something a little bit like this. And there we go. So that's slightly better pattern coming around. 2, 1, 1, 1, and then 3, and then it goes on. It doesn't have to be a perfect pattern every time, but you want to consider the shape that you're making it look like in the zoomed out versions. This is at a kind of diagonal angle, so it's definitely not going to be perfect, but I want it to be nice to look at. About like this, I think. Let's see. It's just a little bit awkward at this point right here. There we go. Getting rid of that one pixel made it a little bit rounder. Let's try that. Nope, that one needed to remain there. Try this one. Ah, that helped. So this is where the reason that this is pixel art is that if I put this pixel here and I'm looking at the thumbnail, it doesn't look quite right to me. It looks like it's got a little corner there. If I take that one pixel away, suddenly it feels round. That's when you know for sure that you're doing pixel art. The change of one single pixel makes that much of a difference. Okay. All right. So in my reference, there are a number of tones in the hairy skin of the kiwi. I might take colors from different pictures instead, and there are a number of tones in the flesh of the kiwi, including this white kind of central core. At this point, I've got my basic shapes figured out, and I want to start figuring out all of the tones that I'm going to use in this composition. So I'm going to start blending together some different versions of brown to try to get the shadow areas. What I recommend is first start with a full lit color and then get whatever the darkest shadow is, because that's the full range of the thing that you're making. I'm going to make this just a little bit more red, darker, and not 100% down, like way down at this level. And I'm just going to fill in a certain portion of this to see how that feels. So once you've blocked off an area like that, you can just use the paint bucket, and that'll speed things up just a little bit. And then take a look up at my preview to see if that's working. It's a little bit stark and plain, but not too bad. I think the Kiwi itself is a little bit yellow, slightly green, the brown. So I'm going to switch back to that other one. Let's see what part of the color spectrum I'm on. I'm like orange. I'm going to bring it just a little bit closer to yellow, fill that in, and then my other brown, I'm going to scoot it back just a bit closer to yellow. I don't want it to go too far into the red. Okay, so then on my other layer, I'm going to try to get those colors that make up the flesh of the Kiwi. So in this one, let me just click over there. So we've got this color, and then we've got a light, slightly more yellow. Yeah, a little bit more yellow, lightly. About like here is one of those other colors. So let me go ahead and fill the whole thing with that color first. Grab this one, and then just kind of sketch it on top to see if it's visible enough. Okay, so take a look at the preview. I can't see that color at all. So that's not working. So it means I either have to change this color or I have to change the darker one. I'm actually going to darken the other green, I think. Yeah, it's way too bright. So I'm going to bring this down to like here. There we go. So now we can see clearly between the two. That was probably a bit too much though. I'm going to push it back a tiny bit, a little bit more. Right about there, I think. So I want it to have enough contrast to be able to see, but I don't want it to be like two different shapes entirely. Okay. Then we've got a darker green than that, which is making up a lot of the stripes. So I'm going to fill in most of the center of this, just so I've got something to work on top of. And then I'll reselect my dark green, and I'm going to go darker than that, and maybe a little bit more blue as well. And let's see. Okay. And this will make some sort of starbursts or something like that. That looks okay. It's hard to tell because I don't have any seeds right now, but I'll just make a few little areas of that so I can see all three colors. And then I'm going to try to add some seeds. The seeds themselves, I can either make a single uniform color, or when I look at it, some of them are under the surface and are therefore more cloudy. And I kind of like that, so I may choose a number of different blackish kind of colors for the seeds. So let's just start first with a very, very dark, and I'm going to say desaturated also color. So this will make a few seeds. Yep, those look like seeds, all right. And then I want to try to get a grayer variant like this. Does that work properly? Not yet. I'm going to go a little bit brighter and a little bit more saturated. So it's as if we're looking at it through the flesh of the Kiwi. Does that one work? Yeah, I think that one works. Okay, so I've got two different dark colors. If you're worried about your palette resetting itself and getting rid of your choices, what you can do is just dab these in a portion of the canvas where you're not currently using it. So I can grab, I think it's Alt click to sample, and then I'll just dab them over here on the side, so that even if I erase everything, then they won't go away from my palette, and I could just pick them down here. This also makes it so that you color pick your own palette, even if you weren't using Piskel anymore. And I'll do the same thing for the brown part of the Kiwi. Alright, so looking up at the preview window, that's a pretty good arrangement of colors so far. I'm feeling okay about that. We do need the very white part of the interior of the kiwi though. So I'm going to go ahead and select that color and come all the way up to about here and fully inside of yellow, because I think there's a little bit of a yellow tinge on it, and that'll be the core of the kiwi. And then there's just a little bit of yellow around that, kind of like that. Okay. So I'll go ahead and use those as well. I think that's all the colors I want to pick. That's probably more than I intended though. That, looking at it now, this arrangement of colors, that's a lot of colors just for one fruit, right? It would be much better if I could consolidate down and make some of those go away and still get the level of detail I want, but I have chosen a very complicated, difficult, fruit to portray. So I'm going to try to start approaching making this interior part of this kiwi, and if I find that I can get rid of some of these details, then I will. If not, then oh well. So let's start by filling in the interior of this with just one color and then making the most obvious detail. So I'm going to start with, I think, my dark green. I want to fill it all in with dark green, because maybe I can get rid of that lighter green. We'll see. Okay, so there we go. Whole thing's dark green. So if I show you guys the picture again, what should I fill in first as far as the most obvious detail on this cut part of this kiwi? Probably the white, right? And the white has, after that, a series of rays that come out from it. That's going to be the thing that I'm going to start off with. The small details are like the individual seeds and maybe the fading of color, as you can see this lighter color around. Okay, so let's fill in that white. So I'm going to grab that shape, and it's a very haphazard kind of pattern, but what I'm interested in is, can I get something that looks organically spiky enough while not looking like it's just a big round target in the middle? See, if I did this, something like that, then it just looks fake. It looks like a lifesaver or something. So instead, I want to give it little spikes and nuances the way I see in my image, which could be tough. And it's probably going to require a little bit of anti-aliasing at some point. Let's try that. That's not bad. See, something like this is probably good enough. And then I would have to, well, let's go ahead and try to anti-alias it a little bit right now. So taking a look up here is what you want to do to see if the anti-aliasing is working properly. It looks like these two colors are too similar to really be properly utilized this way. So I'm going to use this darker color instead. So I just kind of keep looking back and forth to see, am I getting the effect that I want? That worked a little bit. It's a little crazy in shape just because I picked kind of a weird shape to start off with, but it is working for the most part. That one made that very, very harsh. And I could go on noodling it for a while, but instead I should probably try to get the rays coming away from the center at this point. Alright, so I've got a fairly dark tone here, and I need to kind of fill in a lighter. Let me try to use the same one. I'm going to try to use the same green to see if I can double line it. I want to try to use this lighter to break up this appearance of this solid color and get it to make a gradient. Diagonal lines are going to be completely safe to use, but every other angle is going to require some sort of like 2 up or 2 over 1 up kind of solution to it. And so it's going to become very, very hard to make this work properly. So something like this. As long as I can get the appearance of rays though. Here's another situation. Going straight down is probably going to make it far too dense. So that's going to be a problem as well. I'll go ahead and fill them in for now, but we probably don't want to have perfectly filled in solid areas like that either. We could do something like that, like keep it at a slight angle. Let's try here. And I'm trying to just create some sort of pattern that will be recognizable enough without looking like everything is crooked constantly. Okay, how am I doing here? What do you guys think? Is this appearing enough like a kiwi for you, or do you think that there's some major problem? Don't be afraid to put in your 2 cents.
I think it's good, but the color that you're on, I think, is branching out a little too far.
Yeah, I was continuing it all the way out to the edge just to see, but I'm probably going to have to cover it up with another second color, like one of the darker ones. But that's good feedback. Anybody else? Want to see a picture of the kiwi again? There it is. Because probably I'm going to need to put a halo of this color solidly going around right about here, I think. And then maybe transition it, or maybe just not. Maybe not transition it. No opinions?
I think people have more opinions when the seeds are put in place.
Probably. Alright, so I'm going to just start doodling around in this circle, this place where that will be more solidly filled in. And I've got a really, really hectic kind of thing going on right now. All that pattern that I had is kind of getting lost once I do this. So it's more like the dark shapes are the ones that I have to worry about, not the light shapes. And I'm kind of approaching this the wrong way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to at least fill in the outer reaches of this with solid light colors. And then I'm also going to use this more saturated one almost at the border. And with that, I'm just going to fill in almost all of it except for the outermost rim. That one I'm going to leave dark on the top, and I'm going to allow it to be lighter on the bottom. We're going to leave it darker on the top like that. Get rid of all of the colors that made it to the edge. And then once I get down here, I'm going to make this color go all the way to the edge so that we don't have that dark rim. Kind of like that. Let's bring it down a little bit more. Kind of like that. So the reason for that is just to give a slight difference, and then also because we're going to have a little bit of the rind or the peel visible down there. Let's see. Somebody was doing? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to have a little bit of the rind or the peel down here, and this lighter green will have a greater contrast with that. So that's the thought behind that. All right. So yeah, something like this. So now I'm going to try to see if I can fix up this center bit with a more reasonable pattern, I guess. So I need to have the dark tone and this light tone because they are the two. And let's see, they're all just kind of little stripy bands, I think. So if I can alternate around, I'm going to invert this. There we go. So if I can alternate around like that, like this, maybe it just needs to be a very geometric pattern for this to work. And I don't want it to really hit the edge too often either. Taking a look at my reference again. Okay, yeah, anywhere where there's a white spike, that is not the place that I need to put the dark tone. I need to put them off of those. So like this, or like this. So I need dark tones here instead, side by side with that, not right in line with it. Okay, so I'm going around again, trying to establish these patterns. Okay, so this is the spike, so I don't want one there. I want one here, here. Let's see. No, probably just got to do this. This. Actually, let's just go right next to that. So something more like this now. So what I've ended up with is far less complex stripes than before, but now it's much easier to follow them visually. So that would be the big difference here. We can now see that it is supposed to be like a starburst shape because there aren't as many of them, they're not as haphazard, they're not going in every different direction, and then I made the connection in the color between the shape of the white and whether or not this was a light or a dark shape out here. Notice that these dark shapes don't really go that far, so I need to shorten them up a little bit, and then probably make the milder green inner seed a little bit further in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I do the seeds. I'm doing an awful lot of work before actually introducing the seeds, because I'm going to do the seeds on a different layer, and I want this to work by itself before I ever get to that point. Okay, some of them got to stay that far. Let's bring this one in just a bit. That one's okay. That's okay. Okay. That one. Okay, so now it's a little bit tighter. And I'm going to bring in the green, but this is going to be the first time I'm going to go ahead and use dithering for this because I think it's called for in this case. I've got this complex shape. This is really just a color transition, so at this point I'm going to fill in every second pixel instead of every pixel. And which ones I fill in is sort of due to what looks good, but trying to maintain that pattern is important. Breaking that pattern looks really obvious when you do it. Okay. Does that work? Yeah, okay, so I'm looking up here. The amount of noise that I added is not so overwhelming as to completely ruin it. I feel like that's working okay. I'm liking that. All right. Let me just check really quick. Is this the same color? Wow, that does not look like the same color, but it is the same color. Okay, so I'm good with this. So I will go ahead and add one more layer on top, and I'm going to try to do the seeds. So where I place them, they all kind of go out in this field. Most of them are in a dark shape already. So they're in a dark shape already. They avoid the light colors a bit. So I'm going to put seeds in the dark shapes, sometimes close to the white, sometimes far away, like that. Okay, and so we can see up here how that's working. This is far, far less seeds than in a real kiwi, but I think that's going to work better. Right? We don't want to add as many as we see, like a whole blurry kind of assortment of them, because then we're not going to recognize them as seeds. This helps them to be individually recognizable as seeds. So I'm going to leave it kind of like that. Let's try our second halftone color and see what happens if I add another whole grouping of them. Sometimes near black seeds, sometimes far away. Trying to keep some variety. Okay. So based on our picture of a kiwi here, stop trying to dock there. There we go. Based on our picture of a kiwi up here, do you guys think that those lighter color seeds were a good idea, or should I just get rid of them? Did they make this look better, or did they make it look worse?
I think it makes it look better.
You think so?
I think it looks alright.
Yeah? Okay, I think it looks worse. Not to be contrarian, right? But I feel like now I can't tell what's a seed and what isn't. And it kind of muddied the entire idea for me that these are seeds, little individual black standout seeds on the surface. I'm just going to get rid of them real fast. I could always add them back in. Whoop. Sorry, again, I need a transparent color for my second color. There we go. I'm only getting rid of the light colored ones, not the dark ones, just to show you the difference. Okay, so look at that. I like that so much more. But what I could do is, instead of adding more seeds, I could just color some of these gray. So I have the same number as before, but now some of them are light, some of them are dark. So let me go ahead and try that. I'll color that one gray, this one, that one, this one. And now I could add maybe one or two extras. So like one here, and how about one here? How about that? Does that work for you guys? Is that better than before, worse than before? No difference, I'm being too picky.
I don't know, I kind of like the how you had it before.
With the twice as many seeds, some black, some gray?
Yeah, because kiwis have a ton of seeds in them.
They do.
I agree with that.
Yeah? Okay. They do have a ton of seeds. I want to be able to see that that's what they are, and it's not just darkness, though. But, might be true. So Lily is saying,
There's like a balance.
oh yeah. Oh, there certainly is somewhere, but we got to use our judgment to try to find it. And so what I'm looking at is, oh no, I can't tell those are seeds. And what you guys are looking at is, but wait, a kiwi looks like that. This looks more like a kiwi. And so it's somewhere between those two opinions is what we should actually do. I'm looking at it again and thinking, you know what? Yeah, I think you guys are right. We need more seeds the way that I had it before. It probably was better. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the dark color again. I'm going to dot in just a few more dark ones with what I have now, and I think then we'll be just about there. So I'm going to put one here, here. I'm going to need at least one over here somewhere. There, and maybe one here. And I feel like I need one more over here somewhere. How about right there? Nope, didn't like that. How about right here? Okay, how about that? Did I strike that balance for you guys?
I think so. I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah. Once you guys all started saying that, I took a second look and went, you know what? They're right. I don't like it either. It doesn't have enough seeds. Now it feels like it's got the right amount. So the question is, am I done with this area of detail? I've got seeds. I've got green and stripes. Am I done?
I kind of feel like it's like kind of flat because there's nothing really behind it. But other than that,
oh yeah, the peel so that it looks like it's actually a cut piece. Yes.
Yeah.
But I just mean in the green. So here's the thing. That was kind of a trick question. Okay? Of all the stuff I've got going, look at the whole composition. What is the thing with the most detail?
The midsection.
This midsection that I've been working on, this green thing. How on earth could I know if I'm done with it if I haven't touched the other stuff at all? I have no idea. So rather than working on one little section like this until it's completely done and perfect, you shouldn't do that. You should bring one area up to a nice area of development, then move on to another and bring that up a little bit, and then move on to another and bring that up a little bit to bring the whole image up at the same time. Right? The way I was working on it was a little bit too tunnel vision. Okay? So beware of that. Beware of that tunnel vision because it's very likely to happen to you at some point. I'm going to go ahead and merge this down because I don't think I need them to be separate anymore. I'm going to add the extra little peel part like Nathan was saying. And it's going to be a little bit tricky because I got to find what is the right perspective for this. Okay. Trying to figure out, probably going to have to come all the way down to there. Not quite. What did I do wrong? How's that? Oh. There? That look nice and round? Too high up on this side? Ooh, that helped. That one little dot just did. Does that look like this is a round cutout in front of this other one, or is it not quite there?
Is the kiwi color that's cut different from the one in the background?
No. It's just that I've got a shadow between the two. You watch.
I'm just looking at the top right picture.
Yeah.
It's slightly different. I think that's just my screen.
See how I've got this big blob here now? Check it out.
Yeah.
No difference. See?
Yeah, it's just my computer screen.
Well, I think it's really an optical illusion. That you think it should be different because it's right next to green and that one's right next to gray. So it's more like an optical illusion. But good asking that question. I mean, it definitely could have been, and then I would have one extra color in my palette by mistake. I'm going to make this just a little bit fatter to see if that helps at all. A little bit. And I could actually move everything up 1 pixel. I've got room on top. That way I would maintain a 1 pixel border. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to use my move tool and scoot all of this up 1 layer. And on my other layer, I'm going to scoot all of that up 1 layer. And I think I'm going to merge the 2 layers because I don't see any reason why they should be separate anymore. There we go. Just working on one whole layer like that. Blame the light spectrum. Blame psychology. Blame whatever. Okay. So now let's work on the peel a little bit, or the skin, whatever we want to call it. We know we want it to be a little bit hairy, but there's also this kind of dark, kind of floral detail, this kind of shriveled like flower stem thing coming out the side here. Let's see what's going to be appropriate for that. I think I want to use a very dark brown, maybe not the same black as we had on the seeds, although that would be kind of traditionally pixel art would favor using the exact same color. I'm going to just try to get a very dark brown about here, and I'm going to put this sort of detail thing over on this side where we could see it kind of just sticking out haphazardly like this, and hopefully it doesn't look bizarre. Uh-oh, it looks bizarre, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Crap. It looks bizarre. Let's see. Took it away. What can I do with that? So weird.
Maybe because it's too dark?
Maybe. I mean, it's got to stick out, though, enough. I really did pick one of the most challenging fruits I could pick. Maybe a sort of shape like this. I'm not sure. Not sure. Actually, in some of these pictures, okay. So in some of these pictures, it looks a little bit more round and cut out like a navel of an orange or something. I think that's probably the opposite side of the kiwi. But I could opt for that if this is too hard. Have a sort of little raised section like that. I think I may do that because this side that I'm trying to depict is way too difficult. I'm going to make a sort of pancaked little cutout shape area here. That's almost there. Let's see. Sort of an ellipse. That looks a bit weird. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's a bit better. And I'll get rid of this and this a little bit as well. Okay, so something a little bit more cut out like that, and then I'm gonna have to figure out like some extra details to throw in here, like a second like neck like that or something, to see if I can make it stand out. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone for a moment because that's going to be its own entire puzzle, and see if I can get the shading and hairiness of these things working at all. That, I figure, is going to be the hardest thing, because just look at these things. they're nuts. And I probably need a dithering pattern for this that's going to help. So let's do dithering pattern search again. And what I'm looking for is a pattern that's going to look hairy. There are some in this right here, but they look way too complicated. If it were a pineapple, that would make sense. It might work. I mean, it gives a lot of visual noise. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I may just have to try, yeah, like something like this. This pattern's very easy to follow. Here's a more randomized one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe something like just this, because it's giving a large amount of visual noise, but might contribute in the way that I want it to. Let's see here. So this is a nice like transition gradient, but anywhere in here just pick a row and that could be your pattern. So kind of like flowers like this separated by big plus signs. I think I'm going to try that. We're going to try like plus signs. Alright, so then it's a question of color. Do I want this highlight color on here, or do I stick with just my shadow? When I look at these kiwis, I see this kind of yellowish highlight color, and I think I want to try to get that in here. So let's see if I can manage. I've got my lighter color brown already selected. I'm going to go up just a bit and slightly desaturated. I think I'm going to slide down towards yellow just a bit. Let's see. I think that's a good color. I like that color. So I'm going to make plus marks like this. And it looked like they were all separated by about this much space. I'm going to make a new layer for this. It just occurred to me that might be a bad idea to do this on the current layer, because this way I could copy and paste them. Alright, so I'm going to fill this back in. On this new layer here, I'm going to actually select that and copy Control C and paste Control V, and now I'm going to move it and Control V, Control V. Is it like that or like this? I need to look at my dithering pattern again to remember. Oh, actually it's tighter than that. They needed to all touch. Okay, so I'm going to cut, paste right here. Sorry, paste right there. I messed it up a little bit. I'll just draw it by hand. So it's like this. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste that. I'm thinking, which side do I want my lighting on? I could do it like this one, but I think it'd be better if my lighting was on this side, because I'm kind of, well, no, I'm casting a shadow against the side of this, so yeah, we can be on this side. So I'm going to take this and copy it and paste, and I'm just going to kind of fill this whole area with this and then decide how I need to alter it once I see it filled in. There we go. This is why I'm using a different layer, because now I can just erase out this pattern as it passes outside of the kiwi's bounds. I'm going to make this a lot faster. Alright, so let's see that. So this is clearly too much, right? And I need to erase all the stuff that goes outside. I don't know where the borders of the kiwi are anymore, so I got to get rid of some of them to see. Definitely not up there. Okay. Cool. Alright, so we've got this big filled in area. We definitely don't want it extending into the foreground kiwi or into the shadow or anything. Okay. So then I have to try to transition that dithering pattern into one of these lighter ones. So I have to look real close to see what they're doing. They start to space it out by a row. Then there are these kind of floating flowers. And then it's like this assortment of grid blocks, and then they're gone. So in this brightest area here, and I may need one more color even, I leave them like this, but then over here I just start taking out the centers of like every second bloom, like that. And then I need to space them out by 1 pixel so they're not touching anymore after that. So I think it's like this now, kind of offset like that. Yeah, and then past that I'm not even sure. It looks like just kind of big spaced out individual pixels, but where do they go? Let's see. They're like right like that. No, that's slightly wrong. Here. Yeah, more like that. I don't even need them all the way down there. Alright, how's it looking in that thumbnail? I'm definitely not done with it, but I did enough work that I could now assess how this approach is working. What do you guys think? So look at the tiny thumbnail. Ignore the fact that this is chaotic on the left-hand side. Is the right-hand side working to make it look both hairy and like it's changing how lit it is?
I think so. It's not too complicated.
It's crazy, but it seems to kind of be working, huh? Yeah, lucky me. If it didn't, I don't know what I was going to do. So little adjustments needed, but that's the approach I'm using. So let's see, over on this side then, separate by 1 pixel, kind of just that. That doesn't look very good. Let's see. Yeah, kind of just like that. I do want to get these ones out of here though, because they're too close to that shadow being cast. Okay, we'll just say that that's working enough for the moment. I mentioned using another color that if I want to make this appear to kind of shine even more, I could pick a slightly lighter yellow. I could even put it in the core of just a few of these near this highlight area. You can see it gives it a little bit of extra something, but I'm thinking that that's probably too much in this case. Yeah, probably too much. Okay. Or I could cover over just existing pixels and replace them in some sort of pattern with this additional color. One really cool benefit of this though, I just did a big pattern. It's really crazy. It barely works. I did it on a new layer, right? I could turn the alpha of that layer down now and look up at the preview window. Look at that. Because the colors are so similar now, it appears to be more of a texture pattern and less of a lighting pattern, and it kind of helps. It makes it appear to be a lot less overbearing just by turning that opacity down. Let's try something a bit higher than half though. Let's try 75%. There we go. So now I can get that pattern, that hairiness, and not have it look like so overbearing the way it does when I'm looking directly at that color. Okay. Do I need to put this pattern on this part? Probably, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what the heck am I going to do?
It's kind of hard, really, to make a furry design besides just putting a bunch of dots on it.
That's absolutely right. It's very hard. And I picked this example kind of on purpose, knowing that this was a hellish example. This is not an easy one at all. It's very, very hard. And I don't want you guys to like automatically pick something this difficult. So, partially caution. I'm trying here, like, so hard. I don't even know. Now it would go here and then there. So it'd be something like this, but it's definitely not looking very good on this bottom portion. Yeah, not sure about that. All right, so I would probably have to keep going and noodling this over and over and over again, going round and round with these different colors, trying to figure out different approaches to it. But hopefully you guys got enough of an idea of how precise this can be, how much work it can be to do these simple little fruit shapes. So it's not just a case of grabbing this pencil tool and just waving it around in a circle to make something roughly ovular and choosing the right colors. If you do that, it's not going to look good, right? You got to give it some thought. You got to use some sort of approach to getting the effects that you want. Really think about your composition. Really think about what it is that you want to show and how much of it and where. All of those things matter. Okay? Do you guys have any questions about this?
So, go ahead, one.
I don't actually hear one. I just see the green light.
Oh, okay.
Do you guys hear him?
No, I can't hear him.
Okay. We'll see if he pops up. You go ahead and ask your question.
Besides a kiwi, what other fruits should we try avoiding exactly?
Anything with a lot of very small details that would be difficult to depict in pixel art. So I did mention pomegranate. Pomegranate. Because, holy crap, right? Pomegranate. Not only is it very chaotic. Dragon fruit. What's a dragon fruit look like?
Oh yeah, not a dragon fruit.
Yeah, past the dragon fruit.
Oh, you know what? Dragon fruit might be easier because it is literally just black and white in the speckly bit. But those leaves, those outside leaves, those are tricky. Yeah, the contents, like the internals, those are probably easier than the kiwi example I was just doing. It's not super fun, and the pips are going to appear a lot larger than they really should, but I think you could manage this one. Okay? Really, I just want you guys to think about it. Like, there's none that you should really just categorically avoid, but what you should do is look at it, think, how am I going to make pixel art look like that? What am I going to do for this part? What am I going to do for this part? And then try it out a little bit. Remember, the very first thing I did was just sketch with a very big brush to kind of get the composition. Then the next thing I did was immediately go for the most important detail. If I couldn't solve this green part, then it didn't matter what was going on with the furry outside. It wasn't going to work. So if you try something out, you can't get anything to work, don't bother with the rest of it. Just pick something else and move on. Okay? But these should not only look like the fruit that you intend them to, they should be at least a little bit attractive as well. Just for an example, in the homework listing itself, we've got a bunch of different approaches here. I like what's going on in this one. Oh, and there's a dragon fruit in there. Hey, look at that. I like what's going on in this one because they've chosen this kind of blocky, not very real kind of representation of fruit, but they've been consistent with it. And that's what's really important. The consistency is going to matter more than the way that you choose to do it. This is very unrealistic, but it's fun. And I can tell their fruit. I can tell that's a pear, I can tell that's a dragon fruit. I can tell this is at least something like an orange or a kumquat or something like that. These very simplistic ones down here, although they're small, are doing everything they can possibly do to convince you that they are that fruit. I mean, consider, what is this red fruit in the bottom? It's an apple. How do you know that?
The stem.
The stem helps. How about the fact that there's a cherry right there? So that you don't think it's a cherry. Also, look at this. There's a little dark spot on the top and a semicircle of light, and there's a little dark spot in the bottom. That's mimicking the shape of an apple, the divots that you would find on an apple. Whereas the pear only has it on the bottom, not the top. These look simple, but they were carefully thought out. The orange doesn't have that pattern of dimples because an orange doesn't. An orange is round, right? These are way more carefully crafted than you think. And getting the texture of pineapple in this small size, that is very, very hard to do, and that person did a good job. And then it's nice to see, just with varying levels of size, what you can get away with just like a simple avocado. Okay. All right. Does all that make sense to you guys? Any questions?
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
All right. You guys feeling good? Feeling confident? Think you can do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Even if you try something and it doesn't work very well, try again. Try to alter your approach. Maybe pick a different fruit, or maybe just do your best, turn it in, and ask us to give you feedback on it. There may be small adjustments that we could do to make it look much, much better, and then you don't have to start something entirely over again. Revision is perfectly fine and reasonable. Okay? 4 fruits, all the same size, tile size anyway. That's what we're looking for next week.
How do we submit it off the website?
So what you're going to do is just come over to save, or actually we want export when you're giving it to me. But first, save it as a Piskel file, right? You can title it, save as Piskel, it'll go right in your download folder. And then with export, I prefer PNG. And then if you really want to be nice, turn this scale multiplier up to something greater than 1. At 1, I would get a 3232 resolution pixel art image from this. That will be fine if you turn that in, because I'm going to download the whole folder and view it natively on my desktop. But in Google Drive, an image that small is not able to be zoomed very easily. So your preview won't look good, but your file will still be fine. Okay? And if you do manage to zoom in, it looks blurry, by the way. Don't think that there's anything wrong with your file. However, if you turn this scale multiplier up to, like, say, 6 or 10, 10 would be good because 32 by 32 ends up being 320 by 320. Then I can do PNG sprite sheet file export. I guess this is the one because it's just a single image. We didn't set up a sprite sheet, so this one should be fine. I'm going to hit download, and then if I open that, this is how big it opened without me zooming at all. Okay, so that's very, very convenient. Let me turn this down to 1. And now that's how big it opened without any zooming, but I can zoom in quite a bit. And actually I've got a different picture viewer that I'll use that doesn't do those stupid blurry thing. Okay?
Do you want us to save the fruit in 4 separate files or all in one?
I would prefer vastly all in one file. So please, all in one file.
How would you like us to put all of the 4 images or fruits in one file?
Resize, do 2 times your tile size. So instead of 3232, what we want is, in my case, 64 by 64. If you do 1 fruit already, then do not resize the canvas content, leave that off, and then anchor it in one of the 4 corners, and this becomes one of the 4 tiles. So I'm going to anchor it in the upper left. This is twice the size of my tile size, and I'm going to hit resize. There we go. Number 2, number 3, number 4. Make sense?
these all have to be layered? Do you want us to draw them
In
the corners of, or?
This is one tile, this green square that I just made. The fruit belongs in that tile.
Do you want us to draw them separately and then put them into one file afterwards?
Not really, no. It would be probably a lot easier to just draw them in one file from the start.
In the description, it said something about drawing in 4 separate files.
No, 4 separate tiles. So, where are we looking? These can be 4 separate files or one file with 4 fruits. I much prefer the second option. One file with 4 fruits.
It's down more. Either individual file or single file with all 4.
Yeah, that's an option, not an imperative. Can be either. So if you really want to, 4 separate files, but I think it would probably be easier to just have one file. Talking about this part? It's just the same as this.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah.
Or down more. Yeah, that one.
It's just the same instruction. It says you can have 4 files. Your files can either be 4 individual files or a single file with 4 fruits. I prefer a single file with 4 fruits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, concerns, outright panic attacks, predictions about the weather?
I have a question just about the program itself.
Yes.
It seems that, like the layer that you're not working on, they seem like less opaque.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you make it so they're all the same?
Okay.
Yeah.
In the preferences, I believe, layer opacity, miscellaneous layer opacity, just crank it all the way up to 100%. The only reason I caution you not to do that is because you might try to erase something and you can't because you're on the wrong layer. So like I drew this green 2 and now I'm trying to, oh, that's the right layer, okay, and I'm trying to erase and I can't because it's on the other layer and I don't know that. I think that it is actually more convenient to leave it some halftone like this, because now I know the reason I made layer 1 was just to do the hairiness on the peel. But if you prefer, you can change it.
I will have a question.
Yeah.
So, for the layers, do they have to be locked so that you can't paint on them in Photoshop?
I don't understand the question. Are you going to take your pixel art into Photoshop?
I mean, for the layer, well, is there a way to block that so you don't accidentally paint on a certain area?
To my knowledge, no. In this program, not that I'm aware of. Yeah, it is a nice one, and I would like that, but this is actually a very simple program. The fact that it's got the tools that it does is kind of a miracle. Well, you could do this, okay? Let me see. Is there a way to invert our selection? If I magic wand tooled the empty space and then inverted my selection, that would kind of do the same thing. Or if I just did a very, very careful selection, no, it doesn't seem to work the same way at all. I don't think there is a way. All right. Anybody else? questions about program function, pixel art, etc.
What was
Is there any way?
Oh, you go ahead.
Is there any way to type text onto the layers?
No. No text tool. You just got to draw it out by hand.
I would love the program.
I'm doing it. I'm making it work. Oh, I got to plan better. This is how you type in pixel art. it's torture. I hate this. Please let it end. There we go. There. I know, that's the best I can do. What was your question, Nate?
Oh no, I figured it out. Thanks.
Okay. All right, you guys. If there's anything else, ask now. Otherwise, that is it for today. All right, you guys. Good luck, and I will see you next week. And we'll review your pixel art, and we're going to move on to more fun things like animating characters and making tile sets for game development.